This literature review is based upon a coach's use of verbal aggression and its outcomes. First, we need to define what constructs a verbally aggressive coach. A verbally aggressive coach can be seen behaving in a forceful and energetic way. The most common and easy way to identify a coach being verbally aggressive is through shouting and anger perceived in the tone of voice. As an athlete myself, playing in my first year of under-18s AFL, we had quite an aggressive coach. If things were not quite right come training or game day, we usually copped a verbal onslaught. He would yell and criticise every mistake that he saw. A lot of the players, as well as their parents, disagreed with the way he went about things. And although winning our grand final that year, around a quarter of the side did not play the second year in under-18s. Yet another factor spurring my interest and curiosity on the topic is an NRL game in which I still remember with Parramatta vs Penrith back in 2010. I was lucky enough to be in the sheds with my uncle, who was a trainer at Parramatta. Para was down 22-0 at half-time, and Daniel Anderson gave his players the biggest spray that I've ever heard, criticising and yelling at almost every single individual error. In the second half, Parramatta came out and ended up winning the game 24-22. It's moments like these that happen every so often where aggressive coaching is the assumed cause of success. Hence my curiosity in the matter and the reason behind this review. Is there any place for verbal aggression by the coach in this day and age? On the following slide, you will see a short video that will deliver a worthy example of verbal aggression from noteworthy ex-AFL coach Ron Barassi to his Kangaroo side. Take note towards the end, where he maintains his verbal aggression but praises efforts from one of his players instead of criticising.
You are a I'll tell you why. You've got the bloody football game beaten. You've come down here not concentrated. The ball goes out towards the Carlton small man. You stay back with your man. You could have got to the Carlton small man, but I know I'm going to protect myself. I don't mind a bloke going bad, Darryl, but to me, it's probably the cost you're bloody not switched on properly. Now you get over and try and line the bloody forward pocket, okay? Stephen, you go to centre-half back, and you go to full-back. You weren't anywhere near that bloke. They're playing 4 yards from him, and he's a good lead, and it comes out from the bloody back line very well. Keith, you've done the typical bloody thing. The ball's gone over. Oh, I couldn't come back to me. You could have run and intercepted that first goal, or second goal, what it was, and you probably don't even know what I'm talking about, do you? That's bloody right. Now, if you bloke think I'm stirred up, you're bloody right. You're bloody right. You're a bloody fierce in your desire to do it right. You do it. Now, that's not how the bloody forward line do well, and that bloody back line play. This is too big a match, and too much money at stake for you bloody be like that. That bloody forward line's playing tremendous. Kevin Bryant, fantastic!
Straight away, you and almost everyone would assume there is no reason why a coach should be verbally aggressive to a junior team or athlete. And you would be correct, with almost every piece of literature on the matter corresponding with only negative outcomes. At a junior level, an overly aggressive coach may end up with a timid team or athlete too afraid to innovate for fear of the coach. So, in order to make this review a little more specific and potentially debatable, I am only going to look into the literature based on professional team and athletes only. This is where my concern lies. What are the effects of verbal aggression on professional athletes? In most cases, these coaches in professional sport will be verbally aggressive at some stage or another, as the job calls for people who have fire in their belly and are very vocal. Of course, in most cases, there is going to be a line where a coach's verbal aggression can go too far and stand no chance of having any positive outcomes. But what do the studies say generally about the use of verbal aggression? A study by Joseph Mazur and colleagues presented that athletes who are exposed to an overtly aggressive coach are significantly less motivated and perceive the coach as less credible than athletes who are exposed to coaches using an affirming style. And with respect to credibility, athletes perceived a verbally aggressive coach as less competent, trustworthy, and caring, again opposed to an affirming coach. They failed to find any positive outcomes. Next, a study by Matthew Martin and colleagues using a questionnaire on their coaches' communication behaviours found the use of verbal aggression is negatively associated to motivation and effect. When coaches tell their players that they are stupid, yell at their players when they make mistakes, and tease their players in an attempt to motivate their players, players report that they are less motivated to participate and are less likely to like their coaches. While some might attempt to argue that coaches could use verbally aggressive messages instrumentally, for example in order to achieve a goal, there is no evidence of any positive effects in this study of coaches. Lastly, a study by Jeffrey Cassing and Dominique Infante titled Aggressive Communication in the Coach-Athlete Relationship concluded that when athletes perceived their coach as using aggressive language, they evaluated their coach's communication unfavourably, and that when male athletes evaluated their coach's communication unfavourably, they reported less satisfaction with their coaches, less team success in terms of win-loss percentage, and less sportsmanship. All three of the previous studies corresponded with negative outcomes on verbally aggressive coaching, as did the remaining limited quantity of studies. So again, the question remains, are there any positive effects from a coach using verbal aggression? Although not specific to sport, the concept of emotional contagion is highly researched and can be associated with our current investigation. Emotional contagion is the tendency to feel and express emotions similar to and influenced by those of others. As explained by Roderick Kremer, a professor of organisational behaviour at Stanford, emotions spread through groups. Yelling can raise the energy level. Yelling can definitely get an athlete's attention, but doesn't enhance performance. It really depends on who is yelling and the athlete being yelled at. Sports psychologist Michael Gervais says, the principle of shocking the system applies to sports. A well-executed yell, one that gives clear direction, can help athletes snap out of their panic in a high-pressure situation. A classic example of this type of coach is the Wyoming Cowboys college football coach Jamar Cain, who was praised by his side for pushing them to the edge every training and on game day by lifting the intensity and the players following. Player Usu Olive quotes, "I love Coach Cain. His coaching style is very aggressive and we need that. We can't just have a coach that's going to sugarcoat everything. We need somebody that's going to keep pushing us, and that's what he's brought to the table." According to the current valid literature, coaching with verbal aggression is seen as a very negative approach. It is clear that yelling abusively can only have detrimental effects to the athlete or team, tearing self-esteem and motivation. Unfortunately, when it comes down to it, some coaches have gotten away with being intimidating toward their players for far too long, at times crossing lines into physical aggression. Sadly, this type of behaviour has often been viewed as normal when it comes to coaching, especially when the team wins and it becomes assumed that aggressive coaching style is the cause of success. Negative aggressive coaches do not help with team chemistry and team cohesion, but instead create a team atmosphere that threatens and intimidates players. Although, after looking into emotional contagion, it appears how loud a coach yells matters far less than the content of the yelling and the nature of the yeller. If coaches are to continue to be verbally aggressive, yelling seems to work better if the message is constructive and if the yeller cares about his listeners. But if the yelling is insulting, if it's meant to tear self-esteem, it has the opposite effect. You need to try and stimulate a sense of confidence and high intensity with players. I have come across too many coaches who are close to popping a blood vessel, and in my opinion, coaches need to be trained more effective communicators. I think many athletes, including myself, are tolerable with verbally aggressive language from a well-liked coach as long as the message is beneficial. Overall, there is much research that needs to be done in many different sports. The current literature does not provide any studies on individual sports and many team sports. Could sporting athletes take even more negatives from a verbally aggressive coach, as they are more intrinsically motivated and are listening regardless of a yelling, screaming coach? In my final judgment, I believe very decisively that verbal aggression from coaches needs to stop, as the negative outcomes are too many. Also, there appears to be many coaching alternatives to verbal aggression that can provide much less harm. Thank you.